All right, we're gonna start recording. I will click on the go live button. Actually, there are two. We click also on go live, and we are live, which is awesome. Let's test the system. Hopefully, everybody can hear us. We see Ryan, it's on, Shai, it's on. All right, it looks like the list is growing. So just to make sure everybody can hear me, if you can do a reaction, click on the bottom, make me a sign if you can hear me so I can see that the listeners are hearing me. Okay, I see the sign. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate. So awesome. We are live right now. This is the number 9 event for the LinkedIn event, which I'm calling From iSketch to iCatch. And yes, there are some words over there, but the intention was to say people start writing, have an idea, you put it on a napkin and take that information, and somehow magically you use AI and becomes a nice render, which is really, really interesting. So some technical things. My name is Sandu Baciu. I'm the host for this event. For people which are listening, if you guys would like to come on stage, and Harish, thank you, come on stage, make sure you unmute the mic when you are on stage. So at the bottom there is a microphone. When you come on stage, we recommend you to be unmuted, but you are okay to be with the mic on, and we can join us in the discussion. In order to do that, you need to click on that hand, which you have it on the bottom, so you can have hands up, and I will click on the system here to bring you to the stage. With me, I have several invites. I have Jericho and Marco. Hopefully also Stephen is going to join us as well. And we'll start with a quick introduction. I will ask the speakers to introduce themselves, and after that we'll dive to the event itself, which is quite interesting. 3 parts, a quick one for the innovation, lots of innovation over there actually, few news on the AI, lots of news from Midjourney, and of course the 3D revolution, which I like to always bring into the table, at least toward the end of the meeting. So that being said, let's start with the introduction. Jericho, Marco, and Steve, if you like, you guys to unmute the mic and present yourself, please.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Sandu, for having me. I'll keep it as brief as possible. My background is in people leadership throughout operational organizations. My professional career, I guess you could say, probably started at years old, knocking door to door, selling jewelry and greeting cards and things like that, and I hadn't really stopped working since. At the age of 18, I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, and I did 13 years in that. And for a decade of those 13 years, I was an instructor for the Department of Defense, specifically with physical security, convoy operations, counter IED after we got into Iraq, Afghanistan, things of that nature. Trained over 25,000 people, and then parlayed that into the private sector when I got out, and worked in various industries and roles, everything from food manufacturing and processing into oil and gas manufacturing, into sales, construction management. I've been in software sales and sales leadership. So I've been in a variety of industries, roles, positions, and managed personally over 450 people. So my passion is people. And over the course of the last several months, I've found myself at this intersect of the interaction between human and AI. And my work, I have some of my cohorts and some of you guys listening today probably feel this exact same way. I have about 6 different brands in the fire, so to speak, but they all kind of stem back to one handle that's being held in my hand, and that they're all involved in AI, and I'm involved in everything from mental health disruption to physical health disruption, early detection and tissue, things of that nature, with advising, helping to advise clients on how to integrate generative AI into their workflows, into their processes, how to leverage some of the technologies like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, and things like that to create imagery and content to reach their audiences and be more engaging and more immersive, things of that nature. So, really, the implications of how to adapt generative AI into our businesses. How do we amplify its abilities as a force multiplier? And how do we do so responsibly? And I'm having those conversations across industries, across sectors, and with a wide variety of applicators, developers, and various use cases. So it's very interesting, and I'm excited.
Thank you, Jericho. Marco, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So, my name is Marco Morales, and my website is bubblepunk.io. That's my artistic name, and that's what I do after hours. And during my working hours, I'm an innovation strategist at TCS, which is one of the largest IT employers globally. And I work in the Innovation Hub in Amsterdam. And also, just as a quick little background check, I started my career as an architectural draftsman back in the day. Then I moved into web design. I was a Flash developer for a while. Then I became art director and creative director for TBWA, BBDO, and some of the other large agencies. And then I became a service designer in the IT industry, and then innovation strategist. And my role is to bring together to the table the IT minds, the business minds, and the user experience people into the same space in order to facilitate how to leverage new technologies in order to make the most out of it, and how to help large organizations adapt and adopt these technologies no matter what they are. And in this case, a lot of it is going to be AI. Last little bit is that I also have a very strong thoughts about neurodiversity and how many diverse people the AI area seems to be attracting. It's a field that has a very high representation, I'm finding. So that's also really interesting to see.
Yeah,
But
very.
in terms of AI innovation, I've looked at applications into health, into construction, facility management, retail, using satellite data, fintech, and of course all the fun parts of it, which is entertainment, art, music, and so on. So that's a quick brushstroke.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Thank you, Marco. And Stephen, if you want to have a quick introduction as well on your side.
Yes, I've been doing graphic design for about 25 years, usually in healthcare or mortgages, more structured spaces. Um, and ever since school, I went to school. That was before computers, and then we had computers, and before Adobe, PageMaker, all the way through. Constantly learning the latest technologies and trying to find out how that can use and help me. Um, Using stuff like the AI and LinkedIn, most of the positions I've been the only designer, so I've had a wide range of use cases. Um, so I kind of rely on LinkedIn and other forms like Midjourney to help me get by and help me create different things and look at different situations and different graphics. Um, I've used Midjourney and Chat in my actual workflow, mostly for social posts. It's really, really great for getting a particular image that's not stock photography. Um, a lot of the companies that I work with don't have people and don't have staff and don't have time and money to do things. So being able to get that July 4th image with a nice piece of text that's not stock, Midjourney and Chat have been really, really helpful in moving that forward, getting creative ideas out and sort of visualizing those ideas, and then taking those into other programs like Photoshop and Illustrator has definitely helped me speed up my workflow.
Yeah, really interesting. Just a few words, I've always made my introduction. By default, I'm actually a civil engineer. My background also, it's a little bit more complex. I started like handle everybody, doing some sketches, drawings, the artistic part when I was in high school and early college days. And after that, I went through the architecture. So I have degrees in architecture as well and industrial design. But my passion was engineering. I love numbers as well. So that was actually my career. But still, like everybody else, you have that hobby for the art and visual. So always you're gonna have it with you. So regarding the innovation, I was thinking for this event, what should I, have the third part. We said this is divided in three. The first will be for the innovation, the second will be on the news, then the third one was the 3D revolution. So for the innovation part, I was thinking about robots and AI, because there are a lot of developments on robotics as well, and I think robotics will generate a lot of cool, interesting things. Even on the invite for this meeting, I posted several interesting posts with robots. You can go and see it. But the background is that this robotics developed through the time. The big names right now. Yeah, you can have the Athena, the robot which is talking, but before that you have the Boston Dynamics. They create robots. I think they are probably the cutting edge over there with robotics. And of course, Tesla wants to invent robots as well. They actually do have cars which are like robots. A lot of people doesn't know, but a lot of AI technology is staying behind the hood of the cars as well. But that was not the path which I intended to talk today. Today, I was actually thinking about Midjourney and how Midjourney is innovated. And the new versions which they come with new commands. And I'm not sure if everybody knows, but I want to share with you an innovative way from Midjourney is the fact that you can use a command like /describe. So when you have an image and maybe you don't know exactly how to explain that image, you can use the /describe, and that gives you a potential prompt. You can see how you can explain an image so you can have a similar results, especially if it's something which you really like and catch your eye in a certain way. That's a way to find an innovative way of making a prompt. But if that prompt looks too complex, they come with another thing. They come with another command, call it shorten. And this shorten, it's actually making from a long prompt a shorter prompt, but with the key elements, the keywords, and still you're gonna get the same kind of results from visual point of view. And I found that quite interesting, because innovative way for the company is actually to attract their users toward their particular company. It's actually the business model. And when you put to the user those kind of tools, actually it makes your life easier. You do not need to watch thousands of prompts, examples, or videos and stuff like that. Basically, you have the tool which can give you the answer right away. And this speed, the fastest information which you get, makes the AI so strong, because that's the reason AI is so powerful. It gives you the information almost in the real time. So I was thinking it was nice to talk about that kind of innovation, and I pick today on the Midjourney because I think they do their stuff in an innovative way. Basically, you don't need an Oxford dictionary. Basically, you have the command /describe of the command /shorten, and here it is. That is how you be efficient. That is how you can find yourself making better prompts. So that being said, for my invites, maybe Jericho, Marco, and Stephen, can you share your experience and how you guys use AI in an innovative way? And let's start with Jericho.
Yeah, thanks, Sandu. So Midjourney 5.2 with the zoom out features and the subtle and strong regenerations from your initial seed image. All of these new features, it's really incredible. The shorten command I found really interesting because, for the last several months, the vast majority of us that were using Midjourney, a lot of it we were learning through, from guys like Brian Sykes and whatnot, through his collaborative books with some of the other guys, Nate's and Chris Branch, some of the stuff that he's done, we're all learning from each other, and there were these almost incredibly challenging like prompt structures that you had to build out. And with Midjourney 5, it switched over to natural language processing, and I brought this up a couple of weeks ago. It might have been in this particular webinar, or it was on the one with John Porter. But in this discussion, Brian Castlefort was in the conversation, and he and I spoke afterwards personally, and he was like, dude, I had no idea you were talking about this when you were on stage. And while we were discussing it in the meeting, I hopped over to my Discord server and I started using natural language to drive results. And he said it was interesting because the results that I was getting were actually a slight hair better than the ones that I had been, really racking my brain trying to figure out how to prompt this thing. And so I'm really intrigued by the shorten command, because my background in how I'm, getting into the art piece, or I guess really just kind of expounding upon my art. I was raised by a muralist, a physical muralist, one that actually used brushes and rollers and paint brushes and whatnot to, paint the side of old buildings. And he did that for 25 years. And the only thing that I've ever done is kind of a hobby sketch. I've done, imagery, some small graphic design, nothing like Steven or anything, but for the businesses I've worked for in the past, for some social content and things like that. But diving into Midjourney, it's made it so incredibly easy for people like me who are more on the writing side of creativity. I've always been a creative writer, so using that creative writing to prompt Midjourney and some of these other technologies to generate unique imagery is really quite exciting. But people like me in creative writing, a lot of times we add fluff in there that, while it's great for the readers so that they're staying captivated and they're staying engaged, it's not necessary for these machines to have those, kind of proverbs or adjective, all these different things, pronouns to describe certain things. And so I find the shorten command to be incredibly useful in that regard, especially if you're building prompt libraries, especially if you're trying to achieve certain end results or certain styles or anything like that. You can get super specific and shorten those commands down, and then really work with them from that point to try to generate more of the image that you're looking for, if you have one, or to get super specific in generating a set of images that resemble each other. With that also being said, from a natural language processing standpoint, it's really quite interesting, Sandu, because from an innovative standpoint, I'm looking at this and saying, okay, this is where we are now. Where are we going to be a year from now? And it was a couple of weeks ago, somebody was talking, and they brought up the fact, specifically with Midjourney, how I believe it was their 8-year-old daughter was using Midjourney and generating obviously the same quality of imagery that a lot of us can with art prompts. But with natural language, I was talking with my wife last night. We were discussing this. The thing about natural language is it's learning how you communicate. And so while I might input my strand of English words together in certain sentences, I could basically have my daughter or anyone else kind of post a different framework to their prompt, but trying to reach the same thing. And we're not going to get the same results. And that's the interesting thing about AI, especially with the natural language processing and learning each individual person. And so I'm curious to see, as this develops, how closely can we take an 8-year-old and their limited, vocabulary, and add that, or comparatively take someone who's got extensive vocabulary, as maybe a writer, and what is the consistency of imagery if you're both looking to, let's say, generate a 1994 red Corvette sitting on a wet New York City street? We might have different ways of communicating that to the machine, but is the machine going to understand us uniquely, individually enough that it's going to generate that same image? And how close to that same image are we going to get?
Yes, it's very interesting. And actually, if we go beyond this sphere, is AI influencing the generation, the young generation, maybe in time the kids right now, they will be more effective communicators, more straight, laconic, to the point. Then it's such an interesting, complex reaction which happens here. Is yes, us, we try to make a better prawns, but in the same time, that is going to influence the generation, which I think is quite mind-boggling. So for the people which are listening, again, if you like to come to the stage, feel free to raise the hand and join us in the discussions here as well. It's really interesting things which are discussed. So Marco, from your experience with AI, what are the innovative ways to apply it?
There's millions. So just to make it simpler, I'll stick also to Midjourney, but also looking a little bit outward. So it's not so Midjourney centric. Now, there's a few interesting things. I've got a love for space, and a few years ago, well, everybody was, I think, questioning our choices as we were in lockdown. One of the things, one of the conclusions I came to is that I love space. I love all things related to space. So then I signed up to a whole bunch of hackathons and events and associations and so on. And that's still something that I'm involved with today. And to give you an idea of the ways in which I'm using Midjourney and ChatGPT as part of the interest. In one case, the Moon Village Association is coming up with a hackathon in a couple of months, and I'm involved in organizing it. And the theme for this year is actually AI and robots. I already mentored 2 years ago on this hackathon, and it's basically an open call to engineers and students in order to think what could a hypothetical moon base look like, but from an engineering perspective. So we're asking things like come up with a communication system, come up with some solutions for powering the grid, and maybe even what would education look like in the moon. So this year we're putting it together with also Manish Kumar, who works in Delft Impact, and he's a lead robotics engineer in charge of all the Boston Dynamic Spot robots in the Netherlands. So that's quite a massive thing. And it's really interesting to talk to him about AI and robotics and how he's using them to digitize the environment, basically putting a LiDAR on the robot that walks around and makes a 3D model of the places it walks into. So what we're going to do is this year we're going to create this metaverse space representing the moon, and we're going to be asking all the designers, engineers, and participants of the hackathon to come up with a series of ideas about AI and robotics in the moon with very specific engineering perspectives. But we're going to give them the tools so that they can use ChatGPT, so they can use Midjourney to visualize their ideas. And some of them are going to be doing it in 3D, so they can upload that to somewhere like Spatial, which is a metaverse platform, in order to present their ideas in an immersive 3D perspective and see how much further can they take their ideas just in the context of a hackathon, which is quite short, but with the help of AI as a co-pilot and to help them visualize all of these. So that's one topic. If you follow me, keep an eye out for it because I'll start announcing things shortly. But that's one way to apply innovation and AI. And the other thing that I think is interesting is I'm currently also building a world with a few people. I see a couple of I think faces in the crowd that I recognize from this project, and the project is the Kepler Files. So if you go to keplerfiles.com, you'll find the information there. I think Fabian and Darian I see are here, and the context is that last year Fabian is also a great artist, great AI artist, and he sent me a message and said, "Hey, would you like to do some AI jamming?" And I thought that sounds fun. So he sent me a couple of images of these sort of alien landscape, but it looked like I don't know, like the marshes in a deserted area with a couple of like alien iguanas drinking in a waterhole. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. This looks almost like the National Geographic in space. So that sparked what is now spanning, I think, close to a few thousand images, um, and a booklet. We're looking release of a booklet, and it spawned a world building exercise that out of these initial jamming of images that we started thinking, okay, what would the desert look like? What would the swamps look like? What do the rocky areas look like? What does underwater look like in this exoplanet, in this world? So we started creating that, and then we started coming up with a story around it. And then we thought, instead of just posting these images saying, look at these cool images, and then they come and go, and there's so many cool images being put on LinkedIn all the time. We thought, let's do something. Let's actually package it and make it into something. So we made a booklet. We published it. It's accessible, and we thought, wow, this is really cool because we used ChatGPT to write down the story from the perspective of National Geographic going to an exoplanet. We used all the images we generated with Midjourney as part of it, so it looked like a special edition Nat Geo in space. And then as we did this, we discovered that a lot of people were really excited about building this world, about being a part of the project. So we had an actual space engineer who works in microsatellites and apparently freelances as a copywriter, as a science fiction copywriter. He said, "Hey, I want to be a part of this." So he joined the team. We had a couple more amazing artists with different backgrounds also joining. That's how we have now a team of about 6 people, all working in this world that we're creating. And not only we're using Midjourney, but also now we're using Adobe Beta to create the background filling, sometimes using Leonardo, sometimes using Stable Diffusion for some specific things, and even some of the newer add-ons that are able to add your face onto, or a particular face onto the images that you generate with Midjourney. So that's giving us a lot of control, and we're expanding this ideally into a video game, into a VR environment, into a music, so into any sort of medium that allows us to expand this world building, and hopefully involve more people and therefore let it grow, using AI as the main engine of all of this, and yeah, just building it out.
Yeah, that's
So,
for
yeah,
sure.
I'll stop here.
No, that's for sure. Really, really cool stuff. You know, I'm really passionate about science fiction and astronauts and space. I'm first on the list. You know, with my passion about that. And again, the world which you create is actually a mock-up, in my opinion. You know, from construction point of view, a lot of people think everything is, just virtual. No, it's gonna be sooner or later a real application in real life. Then it's a world earth experience which you gain. It's actually a mock-up. We can send robots on the moon, we can send robots on planet Mars, or on satellites from Jupiter and Saturn, which I think is actually more sustainable for life, because over there it's actually water, so it's like the South or North Pole here. But that is a completely different discussion. But definitively, I see that as well. AI embedded in robots, which can be deployed and build the infrastructure in any place in this universe, actually. And humans, they are coming after all that habitat it's actually built. So really cool ideas and really cool information which you share. So I really appreciate that. Stephen, on your side, how you use the innovative way for AI? What are the innovative way on your side?
Yeah. I did. I decided on using one Mid-Journey because it was the easiest for me to install. I'm not like a programmer or somebody, so the other programs seemed really difficult to install. One of them wouldn't work on my computer that I have, so I went with Mid-Journey. And then the nice thing was just using real text, right? I didn't have to do anything weird. I could just type in a sentence and see what I get. And I can see other people's prompts, which I can copy and paste bits and pieces of theirs to create my own. But again, a lot of the companies that I work for, and the one I work for now, I do have other, graphic designers and things that I can bounce ideas off of. But normally I was by myself. So being able to get visual ideas, right out and right away without having to, bounce them off of somebody, I could get a really, really good idea of what I wanted to do for the design, and I had a visual expression. I do some freelance, and some of it's for friends. So when they say, hey, I need a logo, they don't really understand all the nuances of what that really entails in branding and all of that. But with Mid-Journey, I can go, here's 10 little logos. What do you think about these? What do you like? What do you not like? And it just helps speed up that process for me to work with them. And again, with social media, it allows me to really, really quickly do something. So when somebody says, I need that July 4th holiday social media thing today, and it's July 3rd, I can really, really quickly get them something that's unique, and then pop over to chat and get them some text that they can use in the social post, and get that through the other places that it needs to before it actually, goes up online. But it's a really, really useful tool, and it's fun when I'm coming up with something just to see what it comes up with. So I can do quick designs, I can do exploring things. But what's really important, I think, for things like Mid-Journey is remembering that art history class, right? Remembering that photography class so that you can get exactly what you want when you want it, right? So do you want it in the golden hour? Do you want it by a certain type of film? Do you want it to be more Norman Rockwell, or do you want it to be more Picasso? Do you want a watercolor or a sketch? Remembering the more and more stuff that you have in your art history class or in your writing class will help you define what that AI stuff is. Excuse me. So
No, that's okay. It's actually an excellent, because that helps you out with the prompts as well. And actually, I even post a few videos on YouTube, and even here, I think on LinkedIn, I post a link to the YouTubes where you can explain exactly as you said. If you want to have a generation of the ideas, you are like a director for a film. What exactly do you want? What's the style? What's the mood? We know what will be the subject, but you need to expand on that. You need to see it globally. You need to see also what is the environment, and again, what's the style for that image. I mean, it's really cool stuff, and everything goes really, really fast. That's the reason actually AI is so powerful. It's almost real time. And with us, we have also Rastafa and Darian. So Rastafa, if you want to share your thoughts, and after that we'll go through the news, which I have lots of news as well. We touch on Mid-Journey, but there are other ones too. So Rastafa.
I wanted to ask, is there a room, or what would it look like to have AI-assisted training students on how to communicate? And is it important to have a base grammatical education before you get into all of this, how to communicate with actually, the AI and the technology? And to add on to that, you mentioned something about what I call intentional replication. So if you give it a prompt and I give it a prompt, and we're trying to actually replicate the same thing versus you, us just trying to find something distinct or different, is that in the programming or is that learned?
Rastafa, your mic was really low. I'm not sure if everybody was able to hear, but Jericho, did you hear the question?
Yeah. So basically, Dr. Roz, let me bounce this back off of you to make sure that I understand your question and that everyone heard it clearly. Basically, what you're asking is with the kind of disparity between people's vocabularies and things of that nature, and even maybe some of their mental capacity due to maybe brain trauma, for example, being one instance where a person is limited in their ability to effectively communicate, right, written or whatever. And so if you're trying to generate that same image, your question is are we looking at the AI machine itself being able to pick up on those disparities and still generate the same image? Is that basically the conversation and where you're trying to drive it? Okay. So yes, I think that as we continue forward, and Darian, I'm going to have you hop in here in just a minute to kind of piggyback on this. Darian and I are working in a very unique space with regard to education, immersive content, user-generated content, rapid ideation, and things of that nature, brand responsiveness. And so a lot of this is about training and equipping the individual ultimate end user of these technologies to be able to generate the highest quality content with the minimal amount of input. And what Darian and I were speaking about my morning or his morning, my late last night, was that we seemingly are approaching a nexus of sorts where you have this collision of technologies and human interactions and applications. And so with that, you have companies like Mosaic Machine Learning, for example, that's got a just absolutely mind-boggling amount of information, data sets that it's trained on. And what that's empowering people to do is it's learning from the collective human intelligence that has been put out on the internet, that is being used in these large training models and things of that nature. So it's learning from humans and then regenerating using predictive programming back to us. So the more that it understands the human language, the more that it understands the human language in various languages. For example, I have a friend who's a computational linguistic expert, software engineer. I have friends who are in the space of being able to translate into other languages and different code and things of that nature. And so as it continues to learn human speech patterns and things like that, it will get inherently better at predicting what that unique individual person is trying to communicate. And so I think, to your point, I think as this continues to grow, we will have 8-year-olds with limited vocabulary and limited knowledge of how to string words together and prepositions and all these different things, not really understanding the application of the English language or whatever language they might be native to, still being able to generate these things, because if they use it enough, these things do have some level of memory. And as it continues to develop, each individual person is going to start to Khan Academy, for example, the leader of Khan Academy has come out and said that the future of education for children is that every child will have his own personal tutor. Well, if that is the case, then we're looking at each individual person having an AI model on their device that has a memory of that individual person, just like your Siri and your predictive text and all of that stuff now on your phones. To Marco's point, we were talking earlier before the meeting, AI has been around for a very long time, since I think 1951 actually was when the year it was actually kind of introduced into the world, and it's just developed to the point now where you're having generative AI on your cell phone, on your laptop, on your devices, but to that same point, you still only have like 57% of Americans that have even touched, ChatGPT, and it's widely available with new applications launching every single day. So I think that disparity of human intelligence or human ability to kind of interact, I think that disparity is going to be smaller and smaller as this continues to grow, because of the way that these natural language processing models, large language models, are learning us while we're learning it.
Yeah, just to add on that, and we go to Darian in a second. Sorry, Darian, for a second. On the comments I posted also, there are AI which actually can read mind, in the sense that they can pick up the brain activity. So that's another way which medical application. That is something which will be developed, I'm almost sure. But again, remember to kind of like a global idea. AI, it's a tool, and AI may become your extension. Same as any tool. You express it, and as is, this personal AI is going to be kind of linked to every individual, is going to be personalized, is basically your digital equivalent, not really a clone, but that is the help which is coming. And we kind of go right now on the news, and Darian, we like to have your feedback as well, and after that I will go about cool stuff which happens on the news. So Darian, thank you.
Hi, Sandu, and hi everyone. It's great to be here. This is an interesting one. I want to touch on what Mustafa asked, and touch on it in terms of my own personal experience. I do teach people Midjourney, also agencies and companies and individuals, and actually, I think the antidote to a lot of the fear surrounding the AI in general is the human element. I tend to focus on first. But to give an example of that, typically the first thing that I focus on with the people that I teach is that there are really only three main blockers that are preventing people from getting the results that they want when they're using generative AI, often in all its auspices, whether that's in terms of text or whether images, but specifically images and specifically Midjourney. And those are, in no order of importance, coming up with ideas, formulating language to convey those ideas, and then thirdly, changing variables within the language in order to get closer to achieving those ideas in a very specific way. And the reason I mention these really early on is because we all find different things difficult, and there's no right way of thinking, there's no right way of using language, and actually this is a benefit because we all bring our own unique attributes and personalities and experiences and so on to the way that we prompt or create using these tools. But just to go further than that, I'm going to quote the very talented Sherry Horowitz. She came up with a really great statement that I think is worthy of remembering, which is that we're fast reaching the point where the execution of ideas is no longer a barrier to entry. The idea rules the day. And that speaks to what Stephen was talking about with regard to remembering, your knowledge and being able to apply that, whether it's art history knowledge, etc. But really, if you're struggling with ideas, that's one singular problem. And then if you're struggling with the language or the variables of the language, well, those things are very procedural and they're very technical. And frankly, those things can be learned, whether it's through watching YouTube videos, hiring somebody like me, or the various other people teaching. And I think just getting over that initial hurdle is the first step. Whether you're a child or whether you're, I've taught people in their 60s who have decades worth of experience in advertising and various other areas of graphic design, and we arguably less than the technical aspects of the use, focused on the personality-based aspects of the use. Which empowered them to go, yes, these technical hurdles are hurdles and I can get over them, but actually I need to sort of lean into my own personal skills, motivations, desires, and my own ideas. And I think this is why these tools are so innovative, because if you have great ideas, it really doesn't matter where you come from. If you can then find a way to apply them. If you lack the ideas, well then you might get the technical side, but it will just be performative versus intuitive and real, I think.
Yes,
Or
and
meaningful. So,
and then to also enhance your statement, with AI, you have a lot of exposure. Like Midjourney, a lot of visual exposure. When you have a lot of exposure, actually you come and having experience, and with experience, obviously that supports ideas. That means the great idea always comes from interaction. Great idea doesn't come for a sitting pool. It has to be something dynamic, and that dynamics comes either due to the exposure to different visual elements, interacting with people. That means there are so many ways of having ideas. And back to the kids always, they are innovative and they have great ideas. And that's the reason I always said, put the kids to come with Midjourney stuff so we can see that kind of ideas popping up, and can be refined later by adults. But the idea itself, to get idea, is the core of being creative basically, and AI is just a tool to let express what you have in your mind. So that being said, actually I want to touch a little bit on the news. With AI, NASA, for instance, is using AI for design. They made some structural things. I found that really interesting. Again, it's in the post. The good one will be also DragGAN. They start making active. So this is more like it's not really a 3D, but if you guys saw the presentation videos, you can have an animal, an object, and you can move them left, right. So it's a real-time integration of that particular subject. And that is I think that is going to help us going toward the 3D. And I just want to touch on that too, because at the end, I really want to say a few things about the 3D. Midjourney came with 5.2. I'm not sure if you guys saw. They do also videos. The video part, I kind of was disappointed, because I know from programming point of view, they just took some snapshots of the rendering. So basically they said, okay, make me a snapshot for rendering 10%, 20%, 30%, and they just put that showing like a video. So basically it's a video of developing the image itself. But I think they will come with more creative stuff, maybe like the DragGAN. Maybe they will have video panning left and right. So I was just curious what will be your idea about that. And the last one, which I want to throw here on the news, I saw AI being used to read ancient languages. So AI is used to read cuneiform, and that is back to the languages. We touched on this at the beginning. It's like how interesting it is, because AI, it's developing in so many languages, even on the dead languages, and how that is going to influence the humanity, because we know the young generation right now is going to be influenced by AI. And I'm just curious how that is going to be. A lot of people say, well, you get lazy because AI doesn't challenge you. And I'm saying, I think it's quite the opposite. I think you are more stimulated because you are more exposed to different things. You get more interactive, you get more fast things, and you need to have decision done fast. Therefore, from a neurological point of view, you become more active. And I think I found that really, really interesting. So if you, and also Darian, you guys have a really cool meeting the other weeks, if you want to touch on that too.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're referring to the Generative AI Convention.
Correct.
Which is really exciting. Yeah. So, I mean, just to quickly hop back to DragGAN, it's really interesting. This floating point simulation of 3D with both objects and figures. It's for a limited number of frames, so it's very early days in terms of what you can do with it, and we haven't yet really established the applications for it, and there is to some degree a technical hurdle for the average user for sure, but I think it's fast becoming something that can be modeled as easily as the tools that are currently on offer by Layer 3D, for example, which are very easy to use and arguably a little bit more user-friendly. But then, yeah, to go back to the Generative AI Convention, that was really, really exciting. It was great to IRL meet some of the artificial intelligence creative community members and people working in this space, so in person, and to present. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be the very first keynote speaker that was hosted there, where I was speaking about lateral thinking and generative art in design, which goes back to the point I was making, that it's really about people and personal psychology and approaches versus just the technical side of use of these tools. But yeah, there was a lot of insights to be had there. I kind of likened it to peering behind the curtain of Black Mirror a little, because there was a lot to take in, you know, and some of it was right on the fringes of what is possible right now and what is coming around the corner. So yeah, I would definitely look up the agenda and who was involved in that, and really follow those people and check out what they're doing. Especially people like Henry Abster, who he advises Google and various other companies, you know, the BBC and so on these things. And we're actually exchanging book recommendations with each other at the moment, which is quite exciting. Quite nerdy, but I love it. So yeah, but yeah, basically it was great to be a part of it. My kind of critique was that ironically it felt like it was the sort of fringe cousin within the overall AI summit in London at Tobacco Docks, where ironically I think 2-3 years down the line the AI summit will probably be a small stall within generative AI, because it's a much bigger field that encapsulates everything else that all the other companies were really kind of talking about or building products in service of. But yeah, really, really exciting times. I learned a lot.
Yes.
And yeah.
We are in a pioneering mode of AI, but I'm almost sure a lot of ways of thinking about the AI will change, because all the industries are affected. That's for sure. And again, reminder for people which are listening, you know, feel free to do the hands up. So come here with us on the stage so we can have your feedback. Toward the end, I'm trying to touch a little bit on the 3D revolution. AI right now, it's extremely strong with scanning technologies. Basically, you can scan something and it can easily become an asset, a mesh, and you can have it imported in the 3D web, augmented reality, virtual reality, and even game engines. And I want to touch on the news again with Unity. They released this Muse where with AI they can create characters which they can move around, so you have the rigging already done, and basically that can be used for movies. But also you can do assets design in 3D, similar to what Photoshop Beta is doing, or Midjourney with generative fill. Basically, when you do the zoom 2x or 1x, you zoom out, but what Midjourney is doing is basically filling the outside part with basically information from the database. Same Photoshop is doing, but that can be done with 3D assets, which I found that extremely interesting, because that expands this universe not only from the visual point of view, but can be on the 3D area. So basically in architecture, for instance, there is another cool software called X, which is mashing all architectural elements, and you can have, you have an idea of what you want to do, and you combine them, and after that you can render them, and actually you can have a 3D model. And when you have a 3D model mesh, of course you can do that as a 3D print. As I said before, can be implemented in some automated robotics and can build something remote, just give it the command. So that could be the future in the next 5-10 years. We'll see how the things will go over there, but definitively 3D and AI is gonna come far more stronger than people think. Back to the game engines like the Unity, I say they have this Muse. I think in the gaming industry also we're gonna see all those challenges, and having more generative databases kind of coming from the information, mash up the information, and we're gonna see a boom on shapes, which probably is gonna influence those conservative industry like those where I am in construction. So we're gonna see robotics coming. We're gonna see design kind of automatically done. The brainstorm for sure, it's all about the AI, but hopefully in time we're gonna have also the application, the beam links, and basically be very specific, building the walls, the windows, and all the architectural part as well, which I think it's quite interesting. There is future. It's pretty bright actually, if we're looking to the horizon. So that being said, I like also if anybody from the audience from different industry, if you want to come and share your experience with AI. And again, today we kind of touch more on Midjourney, but if it's something related to the AI which is not on the visual side, I really like to see how you guys you see that AI application and what will be the impact. So feel free to come to the stage. Yeah, your mic is really low, Rastafa. I barely hear what you are saying.
Okay, see if you can, is that better?
A little bit.
Okay, I just wanted to mention on the list that you're saying, so I'm a neuroscientist and I do neurotrauma, and I just want to mention that Dr. Harvey Castro is actually using AI and 3D rendering and to actually solve cold cases, which is really, really interesting.
Wow.
He just had a piece on Fox TV, so I can put the link in and all that, but it's really interesting stuff. So I think he's someone you should have on that goes with not just the AI, but also the 3D rendering and animation as well.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a great point, Ross. Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, he and I just spoke at the beginning of this. I just got a message from him. So, Sando, we just connected. So I'll reach out to him and I'll start a conversation there because I am very curious about that. Dr. Rastafa and I yesterday spoke about his partner, Dr. Vernon Ruffin, and what he's doing with kind of early detection in tissue and things like that, and how we can leverage AI in that regard as well with their research and development and the things that they're doing with their neurolab, Ruffin Neurolab. So there's definitely a lot of implications for generative AI outside of just art and imagery. One example that Darian and I were actually looking at 2 days ago was a new technology that you basically put in just a profile picture, and it might have been a series of profile pictures, but it wasn't a lot. And basically, just off of that one profile picture, it was able to generate a 3D rendering of that person's head. Another thing that I saw.
Yes, I see that too.
Yeah. And now I came across it. Sandy, you've probably seen it already, where it looked like you're basically able to take a CAD drawing and transfer it, kind of drag and drop it into this system, and then be able to generate kind of generative fill similar to like Firefly, Adobe Beta and whatnot, and do a generative fill based on those CAD drawings. So for example, you have a CAD drawing of a barn, you can drag and drop it. You have a CAD drawing of a satellite, you can drag and drop it right next to that barn, and then hit generate, and then it fills in colors, textures, a scene around it, and all of this. So you have kind of a predictive generative image versus that of just Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or one of these other generative imagery systems, just kind of throwing something out there that maybe you didn't necessarily intend.
Correct.
So,
I saw that, and actually back to the 3D AI. There are a lot of applications which are around the 3D. I post also something which it's an AI counting the ships. So there are some ship going out from the barn, and the AI just saw it, and they said, okay, you have 300 ships. That is also identifying the 3D model. So there are like two aspects, the 3D itself, but also AI looking to the 3D. And that creates a database, which I found that extremely important, because of course you can relate that to the security, and you can do other things with that. But from generating 3D models, for instance, if you have an image from Midjourney, they said they will implement 3D at one time. I don't know exactly how they will do it. When they said also they will do video, and the video was only like a sequence of renderings, that was not quite, I kind of was disappointed. I thought it would be more interesting. But if they succeed to get from an image, from let's say Midjourney image, the 3D aspect, I'm doing, for instance, a vehicle. I can do that vehicle in any software, 3D software. I can do it in SketchUp, I can do it in AutoCAD, I can do it in Plasticity, or like always I recommend it, do it in Blender. I think Blender is probably the most prone to have AI implemented because it's an open source, but that can be done. That means it's not too complicated to get that information. The question is when that is going to come to the market, or if the developers, they want to refine that and keep it kind of for themselves, and when they want to hit the market, it's going to be like Midjourney, a real boom, and everybody's going to jump and have 3D stuff, which I think that's probably one of their strategy. We'll see.
You bring up a really good point, because with Midjourney's video, for example, and one of the things that I'm seeing is kind of this macro trend across generative AI startups is speed to market, right? That's always been very important in business, is speed to market. How quickly can you get to market? But with generative AI startups and these applications and open source capabilities, you're able to start up literally. I was chatting with a guy on GitHub the other day who took his company from conception to reality and products sold in 3 weeks using AI. So what I fear is that you're going to have companies like Midjourney who, for example, does one thing really, really well. They've been to some degree a leader in generative art and imagery, but now they want to kind of step into, for example, let's say runway space, and runway's more focused on video. I'd say they're more leading in that space. And so with this speed to market, it's like everybody's trying to like do the same thing all at once, but it is ultimately leading to this nexus where, again, I have to go back to, let's look a year down the road, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and see that we're going to have the capability in our own hand to go from one prompt all the way through the entire creative life cycle to 3D imagery and create our own game right there in our own virtual headset or whatever. And that's ultimately the future. I'm going to be a 15-year-old kid who's going to be bored one day and say, I'm tired of all these games. I want to make my own, and I want to make it with a crocodile alien that fights a pirate in the middle of Chicago. You know what I mean? And it'll generate everything.
So we'll have the equivalent to the Adobe suite. We'll have an AI suite, and you'll have a subscription service and download it and be able to do anything.
Yeah,
agreed. I totally see that on the horizon. Absolutely.
Yeah, and company-wise also, I'm seeing a lot of small companies making unicorn status, basically huge revenues, because with AI, you do not need all that big infrastructure. So basically, a mom and pop kind of family business, and actually could be really successful because they will apply AI and they will have a lot of activities which a big company is actually spending a lot of time. Plus, they are so agile; they can move to the market faster than a big company in general. Like corporation company. Really cool discussion.
Just to keep it honest as well. The same thing happened with the internet.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So I think being able to publish your own website suddenly made every mom and pop be able to put up a website and pretend that they were a full-fledged company. So to some extent, there's a lot of things that we might say, oh, careful with this, careful with that. What a dystopian future we're walking into. But if we take a step back, we can see that this has been happening already time and again. We've seen it in different iterations. Even when the first print, the Gutenberg print came out,
yes,
the danger of misinformation, was rampant, and so it can be scary. But I think if we take a moment, it's been happening in one format or another for a long time, and of course people would say, yeah, but this time is different because A, B, or C, scale, this, that, but every time has been also different, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's more about understanding what are we looking at, how can we leverage it to understand it better. And that if we look at the history of it, a lot of it is the same old story in a different box. AI has been around for quite some time. Some of these, the scanner has been around for long enough. The photocopier has been around for long enough that copyright issues already popped up back then. So I'm just saying it's good to remind ourselves, not buy too much into the hype. Just keep a critical eye on it, see what we can do. But
Yeah, and take
at
the
the end of the
positive.
day,
Yeah.
it's life as usual in a futuristic kind of way, but it's not as crazy as it sounds.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I'm waiting for that new program to come out where I can install that on my computer, and then it will automatically look at all the images, and it will look at all my news stories and tell me which ones are fake and which ones are real.
Yeah, no, always, AI is gonna take the positive side. Always take the what is good, because people always will appreciate that, and don't have fear about AI, because there are other bigger things, obviously. But yes, exactly as Marco said, the news is actually all news. So yeah, cool stuff. We kind of reached toward the end of our meeting. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much to all the people which have participated, to all the listeners. And again, a reminder, next Thursday, same time at noon time Eastern, which is New York time, we'll have the event number 10. And I guess we're going to continue with the same good discussion as we had it so far. Thank you very much again to everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
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 All right.